Song that Worley just sang, I didn't realize I was going to say that, but it said, "The kingdom sure increase." This morning we're going to look at a topic, and for the kingdom to increase, sometimes we have to be reminded that in certain ways we have to get out of the way. And that's always a good reminder for us, but we'll explain more on that. This morning, I wanted to let you know I love a good flashlight. It's amazing what you have with flashlights. There's so many options today. I mean, one like this, it's hard to see the brightness with the lights in here, but you can buy so many different styles. There's different types of bulbs you can get. And I wanted to make sure I didn't shine it in your face there, but there's option after option after option. You can even buy what's called a tactical flashlight, and that just sounds manly, to have a tactical flashlight. But today's flashlights will blow out of the water what we used to have. For instance, when I was younger, I can remember that flashlights were flashlights. They pretty much all looked the same. You switched them on, and you were all going to see that same yellowish, weak light. And we didn't really know any better. We didn't think much of it because that's what a flashlight does. It didn't really illuminate things. But today you have choices like xenon bulbs. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but halogen, LEDs, etc. There are choices, there are options when it comes to flashlights. One of my favorites is this headlamp. I won't put it on because I'll just look silly. But when I go hunting, this headlamp comes with me. When I'm walking out into the dark of the woods, I take this because it illuminates everything. In fact, sometimes when I go hunting, I get a little concerned that this may be too bright, and it may scare away any wildlife in the woods, and so I'll bring something weaker. But I enjoy this headlamp because you can put the light where you want it. Now again, it's hard to see with the lights on. But the nice thing about this is, if I see something that I want to get a closer look at, to inspect a little bit closer, I can focus every lumen exactly where I want it to be. And so even across a field, if I catch some movement or hear something, I can light it up and I can zoom that in, and this thing will be much larger on the back wall if you can see that. But I can focus every lumen exactly where I intend it to be. Family, this morning, when it comes to your light, where do you intend it to be focused? Where do you intend your light to be focused? Last week, we talked about motivation, the motivation behind the things that we do. There's a lot to be said about motives and motivation. Do we do the things we do in order to please mankind, or do we do the things we do in order to please our Creator? Because there's a massive difference between the two. Do we care too much about the thoughts and opinions of men to where we seek their approval, or do we seek to please them more than we do our Creator? Because there's a problem in that. Do we do the things we do in order to be seen by men? And if so, we are in a very dangerous position. We mentioned last week that when our motivation is to be seen by men, there are two byproducts that will emerge. And the one that we talked about last week was you begin to fear the reactions of men, and so you hide, and you might even conceal any action that won't please other people. And we saw that in Nicodemus. He had a faith in Jesus. He had a belief. He said, "We know that you're a teacher who came from God." But he came to Jesus at night, and most likely because he feared the reactions of those around him. He cared too much about the eyes of men. We see also last week Joseph of Arimathea. He was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because he feared men. But the second byproduct that comes from when a motivation is to be seen by men is that you will do the things you do, and you might even call attention to the things you do so that you can be praised rather than God being praised. And family, that is a grave mistake. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 1, it says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." Now, family, we've heard that verse before. We've probably heard multiple lessons on this very passage before. But read again that statement. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Family, the only reason I have a reason to get up in the morning is that my Father holds a reward through the power of Jesus Christ. If you be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by men. If you do, you will have no reward. Family, we may have heard this before, we may be used to this passage before, but we must not miss the warning in this message. Be careful not to do these deeds of righteousness, these deeds that when you look at them may very well fall in line with the will of God, but make sure you're not doing them to get eyes on you. Because if you do, you have no reward. There is a lot to be said about motives. There's a lot to be said about motivation, isn't there? Just where do you intend your light to be focused? Is it on the Creator or is it on you? Because it matters. John H. Allen tells the story of a lady who opened her door. Someone knocked on her door, so she answered it. And there was a man standing there who had a very solemn, very sad expression, and he's kind of looking down at the ground. And she says, "May I help you?" And he said, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I'm going door to door, and I'm trying to collect funds for a family in the neighborhood that's in need." And then he looked down at the ground again. You could tell he was uncomfortable, but she asked what the situation was. And he began to describe this family, and he said, "Well, the husband is out of work, the kids are hungry, the utilities are soon to be cut off, and even the worst part is the landlord is going to kick them out of their apartment if they don't pay their rent by this afternoon." She said, "Oh my goodness, well, I'm happy to help." She said, "But who are you?" He said, "I'm the landlord." There's a lot to be said about motives, isn't there? In Matthew chapter 6, Jesus warns his listeners and us today that if we allow the motivation of our acts of righteousness to be self-serving, then we have a problem. Don't do what you do so that you will be seen by men, so that you will be praised, so that you will be honored. And if you do, you've lost your reward from your Heavenly Father. There's a lot to be said about motivation, about motives. Matthew chapter 6, if you're not already there, if you'll open it, we'll begin again in verse 1. It says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy," he didn't say if, that's another lesson, but when you give to the needy, "do not announce it with trumpets." Don't say, "Here I come, look at me. Look at what I'm doing, pat me on the back." He says, when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret, when he sees that you're not doing the things you're doing to get honor for yourself, is what it's saying. When your Father sees what is done in secret, he will reward you. Verse 5, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen, not by God, but by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. When you fast," that's also another lesson. Let's say if. "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." In other words, when the Father sees the motivation for the things that you do, the motivations behind what you do, you will be rewarded accordingly. And if the motivation is to get glory for myself, to be praised by men, to be honored by men, then I've gotten my reward in full, and that's all I'm going to get. And I will quickly find it wasn't worth it, and it left me. But if my motivation is to bring praise and glory and honor and to focus my light on the one who deserves our Creator, then we will be rewarded. There's a lot to be said about motives. Motives, family, will determine the quality of actions. A kiss can be a sign of love. A kiss can be a sign of affection, but family, a kiss can also be a sign of betrayal. In our actions, everything depends on the motives behind them, the motivations behind them. We see that in 1 Corinthians 13, beginning in verse 1, when it says, "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love," you might say, "but do not have love as my motivation. I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing." If my motivation is all wrong, then what I do is a massive waste of time, not only for myself, but those who are watching. Because no matter how good those actions may have been, they have become worthless, if not evil, in the sight of our God, based on a wrong and selfish and self-serving motivation. And so the question is asked, why do you do the things that you do? Because family, it absolutely matters. Do we do the things we do to serve the King, to please the King, or is it to get eyes on myself so that I can receive glory and praise? If that is your motivation, if that is my motivation, I hope it was worth it, because that's all we're going to do. 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Paul writes, beginning in verse 1, "This then is how you ought to regard us, as servants of Christ, and as those entrusted with the mysteries God has revealed. Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. I care very little if I am judged by you or any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear, but that does not make me innocent. It is the Lord who judges me. Therefore, judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait for the Lord. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart. At that time, each will receive their praise from God." There is a lot, family, to be said about motivation. May our motives never be to be seen by men, because that will leave us empty. When it comes to your light, just where exactly do you intend it to be focused? Is it to be focused on yourself or on your Creator? 1 Peter chapter 2, beginning in verse 9 says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him." That's why we are who we are, so that we can declare the praises of Him, not my praise. Not so that I can seek my glory, my honor. It's about the Father's glory. It's about the Father's honor. Picking back up, it says, "Who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." Verse 11, "Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans, that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day He visits us." Tell me, how does that happen? How does a pagan see our good deeds and then bring them to the point where they glorify God? Well, it happens because if I'm doing my good deeds and I don't have the light on myself, but rather I'm shining it on my Creator, they know how to get to the Creator. But if all I'm doing is this while I'm doing my good deeds, they'll never see the Creator. We must have the right motives behind what we do. Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 14. "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden." If you look towards wintergreen at night, you know this to be true. You cannot hide a city or a town built on a hill. Verse 15, "Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way," now don't miss this, "in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." The question is, Has the Bible just contradicted itself? The Sermon on the Mount is Matthew chapters 5 through 7. Jesus is preaching the sermon, and what we've read in Matthew 6 is from Jesus. And now what we've just read in Matthew 5 is from Jesus in the same sermon. And Jesus says in Matthew 6 verse 1, to be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them, because if you do, you have no reward in heaven. But in Matthew 5, we are told to let our light shine before others, in front of others, so that they may see our good deeds. So one says, don't do it so they can see your good deeds, and one says, do it so they can see your good deeds. And so has Jesus contradicted himself? This is no contradiction. Matthew 5 is speaking of seeking the glory of God. Matthew 6 is speaking of seeking self-glory. It's all in the motives behind the good deeds that we do. We were created in Christ Jesus to do good works. We're told that in the Scriptures. The question rests completely on our motives behind the deeds. The fact of the matter is, if you are living as a Christian should, you cannot hide it. If you are living as a Christian should, the world will notice. And the Scriptures tell us, let your light shine. But the Scriptures also warn us to check our motivation. Just where do you intend your life to be focused? Is it focused on God? Or have we fallen into that temptation of focusing that light on ourselves? Because it makes a massive difference for the outcome not only of you, but also those who are watching. Because if the light is simply on me, they're not going to see the Father. We need to get out of the way. Jesus says, let your light shine. Don't hide it. The question is, what's your motive? Don't do the things you do so that you can be praised. Do them so that others will praise Him. And that will only happen when you get the spotlight off of yourself and shine it on Him. See, there is a significant difference in being seen doing good works and doing good works to be seen. There's a significant difference. Do the things you do not to get eyes on yourself, not to get glory for yourself. Do them so that when the world does notice, you can then direct your attention to Him. Make sure that He is praised, and make sure that you are out of the way, because it's not about you, it's not about me, and it never will be. It's about our Father. Where do you intend your light to be focused? When our motivation sadly becomes to be seen by men, the unfortunate byproduct is that you do the things you do so that you can be praised. To put it another way, family, you rob God of the glory that belongs to Him. And those around you only get to see you because you didn't show them the King. I guess the question that needs to be asked is, just what does the approval of man bring us that God cannot? Is it really worth risking our reward with the Father so that I can be praised by men? Then we must get out of the way, and we must show them the Father. Seeking man's approval and praise is wrong, it's evil, and it is idolatry, and it will leave you empty. Where do you intend your life to be focused? Shine your light for others to see, but get the light off of yourself. Shine it on the King. You and I were never called to try to impress people. You and I were never called to be praised by people. We were called to direct their attention to the King so that He can receive the glory that belongs to Him. Family, so that those that are watching Him can find Him. They can't do that if the light's right. We sing a song. The kids had a flashlight, they would join me. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. The question is, why? And for whom? There's a lot to be said about motivation. Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father. Family, we've heard lessons on this many times. But family, it is easy to fall into this trap and not even realize we've been in the trap. If there's any here who needs prayers for strength to overcome this struggle, to get out of the spotlight, which has been a struggle since time began. Adam and Eve wanted in the temptation of eating that forbidden fruit. Part of the reason it was tempting is because the tempter said, "You'll be like God." Sometimes we want what belongs to God. If you are struggling with this and you need help, if you need prayers, we invite you to come this morning. If you need help with anything else, you're invited. And family, as always, there's always the invitation to become a child of God, to believe in Jesus as the Son of God, to confess that Jesus is Lord, to believe that in your heart as well, to repent of the sins that have kept you separate from your Creator, and to clothe yourselves with Christ through baptism so that you can be raised to walk a new way of life, forgiven and free, a child of God. Family, you have that opportunity this morning. If there's any that haven't, please come while we stand.